Welcome to Proactis Cost Reduction Series, another board meeting where how to reduce costs is again discussed by the executive team. One area the CPO believes they should investigate is how to streamline the way they engage with suppliers. She explains that the current approach to supplier management and communications is so cumbersome that by automating those processes could enable them to save in several ways. There are a number of areas in which to consider. For example, they could look at increasing the amount of professionally sourced agreements, ensuring pre-negotiated savings are being realised and that people are buying against contracts, negotiating savings when renewing any existing agreements, and reducing administration and burden of workload in accounts payable. She then outlines the potential savings opportunity. £100 million sterling is their total non-payroll spend. If they could automate processes and free up procurement time to do more for less, she believes they should be able to address an additional 15% of their spend with professionally sourced agreements. And they currently, on average, negotiate 17% savings when they go to market for competitive bid events. So using these figures, that would result in £2.55 million of savings. In addition, they could realise savings against existing supplier agreements. A 10% increase in on-contract buying from putting all supplier catalogues in their e-procurement system where people will be able to see and use them instead of buying off contract. Using the average savings negotiated figure would deliver further 1.7 million of savings. And achieving just a 1% price reduction by improving their negotiating position when renewing existing agreements because they become so much easier to do business with would result in a further 1 million of savings. The CFO adds they could save in accounts payable too. For them it's mainly from reduced administrative workload. He outlines the current cost. They have 16 full-time equivalents in accounts payable, and much of that resource is tied up in labour-intensive administrative workload, answering phone and email supplier inquiries about the status of their invoices, supplier data management, all of which is duplicate work to what procurement does, and especially the processing of paper invoices, as they know they should be moving to more electronic means. When you consider the average loaded cost per full-time equivalent, that amounts to 576,000 labour overhead costs per year. The CFO believes that given what other organisations in their industry are currently achieving, they could streamline processes and aim to reduce manpower by as much as 25%. So from 16 to just 12 full-time equivalents. That's 144,000 in savings, and he is certain they could make further reductions over time with a framework for more electronic invoices. So to recap the total savings opportunity here, there is 2.55 million in procurement by freeing up more time for professional sourcing, and 2.7 million by negotiating on agreement renewals and increasing on-contract buying, plus 144,000 at a minimum by reducing administrative workload in accounts payable. That's almost 5.4 million savings straight to the bottom line. The CEO likes the idea of the savings, but is a little sceptical. Why do they have so many people seemingly doing so much non-value added work today? Well, when they take a closer look across the organisation, they find that their procurement people say that they have to spend so much time on just qualifying and onboarding suppliers, and then on keeping their information up to date. They never have enough time left to run sourcing events in categories they know are going essentially ignored. When they sit down to negotiate agreement extensions with suppliers, suppliers always start out telling them how confusing and frustrating it can be to work with the organisation. That always puts them on the defensive when they try and ask for their best price. Supplier catalogues are constantly changing. They don't have the time to keep them up to date in their e-procurement system, so they haven't loaded many of them in. That actually makes it harder for employees to buy from their preferred suppliers than to just go out, buy something and expense it. The lack of complete supplier and catalogue information is really watering down the benefits they expected from e-procurement. And here's what they hear from accounts payable. Accounts payable staff know they're spending a lot of time adding and updating the very same supplier information as procurement is doing. It seems to be like a big waste of time. It can take them an hour or two to decipher, code and enter a single invoice sometimes. And a lot of smaller suppliers send invoices that have just been typed out, and the information can be all over the place. And there's often no purchase order number at all. They often have to spend time calling them to find out what they're billing for. And they can spend half the time looking up invoice and payment status to answer supplier questions. Sometimes they just have to ignore them, which doesn't exactly make suppliers happy. This looks like a problem they should do something about and set out to outline what they need. They combine the respective notes to make a list on the whiteboard. The capabilities they need include a single electronic supplier directory that has all the information procurement, accounts payable and departments need about all suppliers. An online supplier portal that dramatically streamlines communication between the organisation and suppliers. In other words, to enable suppliers to register, maintain company and capability information, and keep their catalogue up to date themselves. To enable the organisation to post RFX documents and allow suppliers to submit responses online. To post purchase orders and enable suppliers to submit standardised invoices online. And to enable suppliers to access account information themselves at any time. Plus, they require tools to standardise and automate supplier qualification, performance monitoring and review processes. The CPO adds one more thing. So far they've focused only on those things where they have predictable savings opportunities. The other big area these capabilities would address is supplier risk, something that is harder to quantify but every bit as important. In addition to almost 5.4 million in savings, if they had these capabilities, they would be able to go a long way to avoiding a number of bad possibilities with more consistent supplier qualification and monitoring. For example, they'll be able to reduce operational disruptions as a result of supplier delivery or quality failures, and eliminate liability and adverse publicity from failure of suppliers to comply with requirements like insurance certifications, safety assurances, hiring procedures, and so on. Now take the next step. Consider the potential savings opportunity for your organisation. Use the Proactis cost reduction calculator.